Hi, welcome back to the show. This is just a video like I mentioned in the last episode, and it's just really doing life together. So I've been thinking about stuff. Remember, I said I like to think about stuff. So this couple of days ago, I was talking to a friend of mine about forgiveness and relationships, and I remembered a story from when I was much younger. In my mid-20s, I had this big argument with a friend, and we stopped talking to each other. And it was interesting because that was really the end of our friendship, about maybe 5 or so years, maybe a bit more. And then we began working our way back, but at the beginning we never spoke to each other. It was such a big blowout that some of our friends took sides, and it affected our lives completely. So there's some people that we met afterwards, and this was a major point of reference. Anyway, fast forward maybe 10 or so years, we met, we sat down, we talked about it, and we forgave one another, and we moved on in life. So today, that would be about 22 years if I count it from today. 5 years ago, we sat down again as friends and we worked through stuff. Sometimes you think you've sorted an issue completely, but then there's still stuff to deal with. So we sat and we sorted that stuff. 18 months later, I met this young lady, and over a period of another 18 months, I met like twice. 3 times actually. Now the third time is when she asked me, "Are you so and so?" So she was probably remember my name, and I said, "Yes, that's me." "Are you the so and so?" I said, "What do you mean? What did the girl do?" And she went through this long list of the history of my friend and I, gone from 22 years ago, right? So by then it was like 15 years. And I said, "Yes, I'm the one." And her face changed, from a sedate, sober conversation. We were now ready for a fight. I'm like, okay, where's this coming from? So what happened is she met this friend of mine after our big fight. And she got told the story of how I hurt this person, right? She's never met me. And she took sides so deeply. She hated me. I didn't know her from Madame. She didn't know me. I didn't think I'd ever meet her. So when we meet and she realizes I am that person, all that anger and hatred wells up, and she begins asking questions from the angle of I broke a friendship and I destroyed my friend's life and I was mean and all these things. So I asked her, "Is it even possible for you to think that I was hurt by the situation?" And her response was interesting. She said, "How? And you're the one who walked away." What many people didn't know when I walked out of that situation is it was a very painful situation for me. But because everybody expected me to be gloating or to be strong, and I was always superwoman, nobody thought I'd be in pain. So I walked away and I moved on, quote unquote, with my life. So I sat down and I explained to her the cost of walking away from my friendship, because I walked away from a very close friend. I also shared with her the cost of making that decision to walk away. But the thing that came back to me recently is how she had never met me. She had no context to why I walked away. And she did not understand my relationship with my friend, to the extent that we are now very close again. We have made peace with one another. But based on facts of something that happened 15 years before I sat down and talked to her, she decided I'm a bad person. And she carried the anger on behalf of the injured party, yet the injured party and I are back being friends. And that struck me because it is indeed possible to carry a grudge on behalf of somebody who has not only healed, but made peace with a person you're carrying a grudge against. And that for me is important. It's important for us to understand that relationships are going to have fights. Relationships and friendships will break. But we need to be careful not to carry grudges on behalf of people who no longer bear the anger. So in this conversation, I told her, oh, by the way, do you know we are friends? Do you know we are back to our engagement? She's like, no, I thought you guys were not talking to each other. It's like, no, we're friends. And then I called my friend and I said, by the way, I met so-and-so. And my friend was like, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But what it did for us as two friends is that we dug deeper and we rehashed and cleared whatever last bits of that argument were there. And there were elements we didn't really understand. But my question to myself remained, who is holding a grudge on my behalf? Who do I need to let know that they need to forgive so-and-so? And it's difficult to know that unless you have conversations with your people. So here's my proposition today. Are you mad with anybody? Are you upset with somebody? Are you upset with a friend, the enemy of a friend? Does that make sense? Are you upset with your friend's enemy? You need to forgive that person. Because here was a young lady who hated me without meeting me on behalf of somebody who was now my friend again. It was an effort in futility. But from her perspective, she was protecting somebody who was important to her. Let's be careful how we protect our friendships. You could risk learning good from somebody because you judge them based on somebody else's experience. Toodles, have a good night.